All right, Hillary, thank you very, very much. Now, the back and forth over that tape recording containing Michael Cohen and his boss at the time, the President of the United States, or soon to be the President of the United States, Donald Trump, a couple of months before Election Day 2016, where it's pretty clear the President was approving a payoff of some amount, whether in cash or check, and we could debate this till the cows come home here, to a former Playboy model, to Fox News contributor Lisa Boothe, on whether this is distracting from a lot of the other good stuff going on. Now, I should stress, Lisa, whatever you make of the tape, the ticker, again, a read of Wall Street reaction, is like a collective shrug.
Well, you know, of course it's a distraction, because I have a feeling that President Trump doesn't want to be talking about this right now, and nor does
he tweeted
the White House.
It,
well,
right?
Yeah, but I mean, is this his preference for a conversation of the day? Probably not, right? He has to talk about it because it's out in the media, and he's getting questions about it, and he wants to try to clarify. You know, so of course this is a distraction in the sense that, you know, this isn't what he wants to be talking about. But, you know, that being said, I don't think it necessarily has a material impact on his presidency, or necessarily even the way that, you know, most of his supporters view him. Ultimately, if there ends up being some sort of crime that took place, which we don't know about yet, if there was one, then, you know, that would obviously have a much bigger impact.
Let me ask you this. I'm not a lawyer.
Me either, no.
Okay. Well, I've watched a lot of legal shows, so I think that
I watch Law and Order.
There we are. So you and I both qualify.
So we're basically lawyers.
Here's what I wondered about. Whether he paid cash or not. First of all, whether that's legal or not. And obviously the source of the funds is an issue. If it didn't come from the campaign, I'm told by other lawyers that it's perfectly fine. Still, having said that, $150,000 in cash, you don't see that every day. That's a little weird, right?
No, obviously it's not a good look. You know, again, this is probably not what President Trump or the White House wants to be talking about. But that being said, I mean, I think the bigger things that voters are ultimately going to care about heading into 2020, for instance, are things like the economy and then things that impact them on a personal level, where this does not. And look, let's be honest. I think if this was Vice President Pence and this news was hitting, that would have a much bigger impact. President Trump's been pretty honest about his lifestyle and, you know, things that have happened before being in the office. And I think voters were very aware of that heading into the polls on Election Day. So
I think it's the one thing that helped Bill Clinton, if you go back in time, because say what you will of him, people kind of knew what they had. And Wall Street, and I remember covering this, preferred to have him in office and out of office because he was very good for the markets, good for the economy, and they didn't want to see him go.
Well, and you're seeing now, I mean,
same thing.
Things in the economy are strong. You look at, there's polling even a month ago, a 10-year high on the majority of Americans feeling like the economy is either good or excellent. So things like that, I think, are going to have a bigger impact for both Republicans in midterms and 2020.
I definitely think you're right about that.
Sure.
And then along comes Elizabeth Warren in this interview on CNBC, where she talks up the idea of getting rid of the tax cuts and also raising the top rate to upwards of 50%.
Sure, she would like that.
So people are reminded, wait, you know, say what you will of this guy, you know, he's not taking that approach.
Exactly. And look, you know, I think that certainly does help President Trump, because then the juxtaposition of what's going to happen, even if, let's say, Democrats take over the House, the ability for Democrats to try to hamstring.
By the way, do you see that happening? What's the latest handicap?
You know, it's tough. I mean, look, I just think it's so early, Neil. And, you know, the majority of the races that I've worked on, you really start to see things turn around the September, you know, time. I mean, I think in this, just the sheer amount of retirements that Republicans have had is difficult, because it's much easier to get reelected as an incumbent. And so not having that, having so many vacancies.
I think Republicans are going to lose, again, conjecture. Republicans are going to lose a lot of seats in the House, but they're not going to lose control of the House.
I don't know yet, but I think that they will.
I think you do know.
They will. They will absolutely.
You
No,
know?
I'm not. I think the Senate, for sure, I could go down as record saying.
They're going to. No, well, actually, in the Senate, they could increase their number.
They could potentially increase the Senate. I think the House will be a lot of seats.
Republican House, does that change the dynamics for this, you know, full press to impeach the guy?
Well, I think it would be dumb of Democrats to do that if they do, but it sure as heck hurts Trump in his effort to move things across the finish line in terms of legislation, in terms of getting anything done between now and 2020. It would make that a lot more difficult, which does impact his reelection, and trying to say, hey, look, I'm putting points on the board, because they will obstruct that process. So, you know, that does have a massive impact.
I think the economy always decides everything. I do. I think everything comes back to that. By the way,
stupid.
Right.
Although you're not stupid. But
well, you called me stupid. It's okay. Fine. I like having you as a guest. Rudy Giuliani, the president's lawyer, is commenting on the Michael Cohen thing. Lisa saying, if Cohen is telling the truth, why are he and Lanny Davis, Cohen's lawyer, misrepresenting the language from President Trump, do not pay by cash, check? And why are they leaking falsely privileged and confidential information so much for ethics. What do you think?
I have a feeling there's going to be a lot more information to surface in the coming weeks and days. So I will there's been a lot of moving parts with this. So I kind of want to see what else surfaces and what other clarity we get. But I think one thing is certain. Michael Cohen once said he would take a bullet for President Trump. Obviously, he would not any longer.
Right.
Clearly, there is a deepening divide between the two camps. And so I think based on that alone, we're going to see, Lanny Davis has already said, there's a lot more coming. There's a lot more information. So I think we're going to continue to see information surface. Now, the key point, is any of it illegal, or is it just embarrassing and it's distractions and
by the way, I'm also
things that they don't want to talk
told
about?
Cash, even that is
I don't think that's
deal.
Yeah.
It's just weird. It's just weird.
My understanding from what I've heard from attorneys,
right,
which I am not, to be clear, that it doesn't really make as much of a difference if it's cash, if it's
shouldn't come
check. It's more about where the source of if it came from campaign
money. If it came from the campaign and it was
right,
meant and it went right to the National Enquirer and of course stopped there to stop a story, then it raises some other issues.
What's the campaign finance issue that
right,
but we don't know if there's been any laws broken, to be clear. So, and there may not have been. So
well, then again, you're not a lawyer.
I'm not
you haven't watched as many legal shows as I have, so you might be wanting.
I'll go home and watch Law and Order and anything else I can get my hands on.
Lisa, it's always fun. Lisa Boothe, Independent Women's Voice Senior Fellow.